Once again, we meet with the Deputy Minister Samantha Graham-Mare, where we talk policy meets the people. Today, and as you can say, it was one of those days that you promised me in Durban that this is going to change people's lives daily. Please take us through, as your speech was alluding to this.
So first of all, what a privilege it is to be at an event like this, to launch an initiative like this, and to be part of what is the first black-owned, women-owned LPG infrastructure in South Africa. I mean, that is just a huge thing worth celebrating. And what this means is that we're bringing infrastructure closer to people. So we're making sure that that last mile infrastructure is being taken care of as we bring things like this closer to the communities. So effectively what this is it's a regasification area that can be used now for LPG, so that people with tanks, with gas canisters, businesses, homeowners can come locally and refill their gas, which they couldn't do up till now. And so this is what we talked about when we looked at the G20 at the Clean Cooking Initiative, is how do we make sure that clean cooking becomes accessible, that we're using clean cooking technologies, and that we're making sure that the Clean Cooking Initiative comes all the way to the pot where people need it the most.
It's a brilliant one because it's quite inclusive. I can see the element of just transition, and as well as the women-led businesses, but also the youth involvement in. Is this part of the policy that you promised South Africa that the department will be going with?
Absolutely. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, it's not inclusive if we're not including women and youth. And particularly with clean cooking, because it most affects women. I think that's where we really need to make sure that we're putting our money where our mouth is, and where policy is actually meeting, hits the ground, is that women need to be leading this initiative. But also for youth, because if we're going to change the trajectory of this country, we've got to make sure that we are empowering youth, that we're giving them jobs. And a facility like this, although it sounds like a little, this gives employment to 10 people. And these are young people, these are women, and they're learning new skills, and they're becoming entrepreneurs. And so instead of just having government that says we're going to create so many jobs, we're actually demonstrating how when the private sector and government meet, we take our policy imperatives and we make sure that they translate into real jobs, real empowerment, and real inclusivity.
I think you did mention in your speech about dignity, and that dignity is not just about cooking, but places like this. I think Refilwe also spoke about women that get into all sorts of abuses when they go collect wood, when they spend more time preparing meals daily rather than having time to whether studying online. What kind of impact do you see these villages going to have going forward?
No, exactly. At the end of the day, energy really is about bringing dignity to people's lives. And it's not just necessarily clean cooking, but in all respects. So, a house that's got lights allows children to study at night. A house with power allows, people to have televisions and to charge cell phones and to have, capacity to engage with the world beyond where they live. And a house with clean cooking means that women are not walking out on their own and trying to collect wood. They're not breathing in toxic fumes from things like paraffin. They're not putting their lives at risk, either from a health perspective or from a personal safety perspective. And this does impact women and girls far more than it does men, because women ordinarily are responsible for feeding the family. So it's about bringing dignity, but it's also about creating that opportunity where suddenly your whole day is not spent preparing one meal because you've had to go and source the fuel for it, you've had to then burn the fuel and then create, a meal for your family. Suddenly now you've got time in your day where you can just flick on a switch and you can cook your dinner. and that it frees up additional time for women to maybe start a business, to study, for girls not to be dropping out of school to take care of their families. So we do see this as more than just at the pot initiative. This is about really transforming lives and giving girls and women more opportunities and more dignity, and also, you know, a greater chance at building a life that they're proud of and that they want to, you know, to grow in.
And what message does this initiative then send to the rest of Africa, and also, I suppose, showcasing to those who took longer at G20 to come to consensus with your vision?
You know, so Africa is obviously fundamentally affected by unclean cooking methodologies. 1 billion people don't have access to clean cooking on the entire continent. And one of the things that we found is that because of the lack of access to energy, Africa generally doesn't have clean cooking. What we're finding in South Africa is, and what we're demonstrating through this, is that despite the fact that we have a very high penetration rate of energy in this country, and 94%, we still need to find ways of providing more affordable and cleaner cooking initiatives, because people can no longer afford electricity. They're reverting back to unclean cooking methodologies. So by bringing in the LPG element in particular, and potentially things like biomass, we're showing that you don't have to transition from electricity into an unclean cooking methodology. We can find alternative sources that are good for the environment and that are good for your, for your personal health. So we're also demonstrating that we said this was an African G20. We're putting that into practice in our own country, and it allows us then to roll this out to other African countries and to support our neighbours in rolling out clean cooking throughout Africa.
Deputy Minister, thank you for joining us on BRICS Africa Channel.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to chat to you.